Hello everyone, my name is Tyler Waters and I will be going over my Tibco Spotfire Crude and Products Dashboard today. So far it has been a extremely interesting semester and it looks as if it may become even more interesting in these coming weeks following the 2020 election. On my first two pages right here I have my weekly market summaries where I'm trying to understand the geopolitics, monetary flows, and the fundamentals and then applying those to gain an understanding of any price movements. Then I will try and understand how this weekly news will translate to short-term and long-term outlook in the crude markets. Some of the major stories coming out of the last few weeks are Libya's oil production ramping back up, daily COVID cases increasing in the EU and US that are definitely threatening to reinstate lockdown measures, and finally the 2020 election. As of the recording of this video on Friday, November 6th, there's been no conclusive winner. This election could shift American energy policy towards greener technology, which of course would have an effect on crude oil demand. Here's my crude fundamentals page where we are looking at one of the drivers of price in crude oil markets. Fundamentals have certainly played a major role in the COVID era thus far. First off, we have our crude oil production. As you can see, it topped off around 13 million barrels a day in March, where we saw a large decrease caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Production has since leveled off, but it has been extremely volatile, and we have seen a decrease from our previous week. Our refinery inputs, as you can see, the COVID-19 pandemic had a very large effect on our refinery inputs. As you can see, it had a slight increase until we got into about the end of our summer driving season. Since then, we have had a small decrease. Next up, we have our gasoline production. As you can see, again, COVID-19 had a very large effect on how much gasoline we produce. It increased until about June, where it kind of leveled off until we got to August, where we saw an early end to our summer driving season. Since then, it has been decreasing, and we have seen a slight decrease from our previous week. On the second row right here, we have our weekly petroleum imports. You can see they are down on the year due to COVID cases. Since we are refining less crude, there's no reason to import as much crude. Next, we have our weekly petroleum imports, which are a little bit lower than last year, and they're kind of down on the upward trend that they were having. And then we have our disti production right here, which is also slightly down on the year, but it's kind of near our 5-year range right here. On this last row right here, we have our unaccounted for crude. This is just a balancing item for the difference between the supply of crude oil and processed crude. As you can see, COVID-19 has brought a lot of volatility to this balancing item, and we have had a decrease from our previous week. Next up, we have our crude oil stocks, which has had a huge increase right when the COVID pandemic hit, but we have seen pretty steady withdrawal since then, with a pretty big withdrawal from our last week. And last, we have our stocks change. As you can see, COVID-19 brought up our stocks a lot, but we have had pretty steady withdrawals since then, with withdrawals from last week. My next page is the crude forward curve for West Texas Intermediate. As you can see, crude oil prices are extremely low right now, with about a $10 spread from previous years. The market is in contango right now, as it was in the previous month. And in this one, you can see the January 6th, 2020, crude was in pretty steep backwardation. On these next two pages, I have crude and refined product stocks. So we'll start out with the crude stocks, which are moving pretty flat with a slight withdrawal. We have the disti stocks moving down right now, gasoline stocks, and the ethanol stocks are both moving up with each other. Then we have the resid stocks, which are moving up right now, propane stocks, which are moving up. Then we have the jet fuel stocks that are moving down with negative change, and then other stocks which are also moving down. So for my last few pages, I just have a couple of web pages that I like to get data from. This first one is to track the global coronavirus cases from Johns Hopkins. Next, I have some crude futures prices as well as refined products prices. And I just have some oil price news and crude news, and then this last tab here is for my raw data to check it out.